beginning of this tape. Let's listen through.
Una, you're saying that William Ruto is hanging out with 32 dropouts. Let me ask you a question. Our fathers, are they university? Are they graduates? Number two, can you compare me with you, Sifuna? You know, my IQ and your IQ, it is not even a quarter. So look for somebody you can compare yourself with, or you can compare William Ruto with, but not me. I'm in another class, not because I'm bragging, but you can ask my history. You don't have even a quarter of my knowledge. So don't be stupid. Don't talk like a kid. Oh, you are every day you've been you insult this one, you rubbish the other one. Oh, so let me. Can you go and ask people or ask your friends if and I ask them to tell you the truth. They will tell you the truth that you are nothing. And you don't reason like even a standard four, from four dropout, leave alone standard two. Because, my friend, it is not about school, it's about skills.
And that's where we cut off that tape. I guess Mr. Sudi has had enough airtime on the space, right, Obeds? Let's take it all the way to the top. I see Mwalimu is joining us in the conversation. We also have you, Bonnie. Thank you for always making time and being available for us. Kindly request for that mic. Let's have this talk. And Obeds, you've talked about that airport, which we will look at later on because, and I'm hoping we can actually address it. But I would love to look at the fact that a very serious indictment is happening to the leadership and specifically to education, or should I say school? There's a difference, do we? Obed, to you as you invite the rest.
The airport I was talking about is not the one on my head. So I don't know whether it's school, but let's allow Teacher Wanda because he teaches people and his name is Teacher Wanda. Maybe he has something wonderful to tell us. Then we have Bonnie and Wallace in that order. Wanda, welcome to the space.
Thank you so much. I remember what these two guys are fighting and debating about, that is Sifuna and Sudi. A few days ago, we had such a chat with academia, and still on the same person, Sudi, that from where I sit, I tend to agree with Sudi, in as much as a number may not agree with me, but I'll tend to agree with Sudi. And I'll probably ask us to go back the history lane, then go back to your school. Back then, when we had the head boys in our schools and the head girls in our schools, at times the head boys were never picked from a group of those that were champions in classes. At times you could find just yule anapatikanaga hata huko nyuma, those are probably those at times that were picked as the head boys. Leadership or leading a group of persons is totally different from leading a professional group. Totally different. When I'm leading a professional group of lawyers, then I need a law expertise. I need to be an expert in the law because I'm leading a professional entity. But when I lead a society, I only need probably to be an emotional quotient, a social quotient, so that I get to understand what they need. Then my intelligence should be able to tell me that this is the problem they're facing. And because I'm emotional, I'm a human, I have those human attributes. So let me not be mean, but let me go in and solve that problem. Going to class does not make one a leader. It never. It only makes you an expert in a specific field. When I go to a class and learn into being a banker, then what does that have to do with me being a leader? Totally nothing. And therefore, in as much as these two guys are a bit politicking, one feeling like the other one has ameniweka chini sana, amenidharau sana, so let me react. In as much as it is seen in that angle, but Sudi is right in this one. You may be educated, you may be having a PhD, you may be a professor, but if you lack the empathy, if you lack the social quotient in you, then you'll not be able to lead others. That a good leader should be able to look into the problems of people, hold their hands, try solve those problems, so that the society now becomes there is a general growth. There is an individual growing, there is a society growing, there is a nation growing, then all in it in general. Therefore, it has nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with one going to a classroom to study 1 + 1 = 2. Eli.
Thank you, Teacher Wanda. You insist and suggest that school does not necessarily translate to good leadership. And you agree with Sudi that that's the correct position, which again is probably true, but it's for us to agree to disagree that that's the position. Boni Mwangi, welcome to the space. And I've seen already you've sent something on the chat, something about Singapore. And I've also seen today you're saying so there's something you've already posted about Naivasha. I didn't get time to read it well because I was preparing for the space. But welcome to the space. And what is it that you have for us? And what's your take on what makes a great leader? Is it school or is it skills?
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, 100%.
Awesome. So look, I couldn't disagree more with the previous speaker, because in my view, this is the problem that we have in this country. If you are in the private sector, and if you ever spend time working for anybody else, you understand that people are selected for positions based on skills, based on what they've done, based on a progression of responsibilities, based on outcomes, based on creating value. That is how you get selected for leadership in the private sector. And I speak as someone who's spent his entire life in the private sector. You guys know that I live in Texas. I'm an economist by training. I essentially work as a management consultant. If I'm not providing value to my clients, they have no business talking to me. And when you come from this kind of background, you understand that, the currency that you trade it with is creating value for someone. Why is this different in politics? Why do we elect people that have no skills? So let me give you a couple of examples. You guys know Babayao, right? Former governor of Kiambu. Who here is ready to hire that individual to run your company? Let's say your company has a budget of 20 billion. I want to know who here wants to hire someone like that to run a company worth, that has a revenue of 20 billion. Who here wants to hire someone like Sonko to run a company that has a budget of 40 billion? Right? I'm asking this question because that's what we've done in politics. We pick people who have never done anything. They've never run a kiosk. And we give them the responsibility of running a budget of 20 billion, 40 billion, where they have no skills. We talk about, Kenyans are so, and I'm trying to be, I don't want to be patronizing here, but we need to connect our choices at the ballot box with the results that we get, right? In this country, we elect people and then we start complaining, right? People are not functioning. But we don't ask whether or not we had people that actually were equipped with the skills to be able to serve in those positions.
So Bonnie, I'm sorry to interfere with your train of thought, but hear me. You've talked about Babayao, and I want to remind you an instant where when Babayao was vying to become whatever it was, governor, he actually presented documents, said he had gone to a university somewhere in India. Now, I don't know how far that went, but you mentioned about the issue of skill and the issue of leadership and school for that matter. So if you were to today our specimen as Babayao. What
Mhm.
did Babayao, in your view, lack that did not make him a great leader? Is it the education? Is it the skill?
You're asking a very good question. So you notice when I talked about when I was talking about Babaya, I never said he does not have, a degree, right? There's a difference. Having a degree or having a diploma with your name on it is one thing. Having skills is a totally different matter, right? Because skills are gained from actual experience on the job. Like I said, having been an economist for 15 years, advising, I can't even count how many companies that I've advised. That's how you get skills, right? Over time, right? You learn how to, for example, diagnose problems. You learn how to apply a process for identifying problems and coming up with solutions. Those are skills, right? Babaya can go and get a diploma from someone. I mean, right now, Sakaja went and got some diploma from someone else. Is there anyone here who thinks that Sakaja has skills, right, to run a budget of 40 billion? There's it's a totally different matter. What's important is skills. It's not having a degree, right? And I'm asking the question: if you're responsible for a company, unless it's your own company or family company, and you have to hire a CEO, and the revenue is 20 billion or 40 billion, I want to know here who is willing and ready to hire Sonko for that job, who is ready to hire Babaya for that job. Or you advertise the position and a guy comes in, and then you catch him with a diploma from some school known as Team University that nobody has ever heard of. Who's going to give him a job? The reality is that we are not willing to do that with our own money, but yet we do that when it comes to politics. And the outcome of this is not, we can see it, right? We can see it. You asked me about something that I posted earlier today, and this week I'm spending a lot of time focusing on our CDFs, right? When politicians get these budgets, what they are really doing is they are deciding where to allocate these resources because they are scarce, right? We borrow a lot of money in this country. We don't have enough. So when a politician is given 200 million and they're gonna have to decide where to allocate these resources, the hope is that they understand the needs of their people and they can be judicious in terms of allocating these resources. But we don't do that. So when a politician gets 200 million every year in CDF, and 50% or 60% of this money is spent on bureaucracy, on meetings, on things that are not actually adding value, do you not see the problem? You don't think that if you had someone who's trained, who understands that public service is about helping, it's about advancing the public good, that's how you get value. But if you put in people into these positions who have no idea, first of all, what public service means, they don't understand that you're there to serve people and to actually stretch the budget as much as you can, the end result is what you get, where, pick any county that you want to look at. When you look at what's actually happening with the money when the money gets down to these counties, most of it is actually spent on the bureaucracy, on the county machinery, as opposed to creating value, as opposed to serving the most people. So skills are important. And again, if you are not willing to hire someone to lead your own company with a budget of 10 billion or 20 billion, you have no business hiring that individual to be a governor. To be a governor. It's the same thing. You can't tell me that in politics, you just want people that are articulate, people that can mobilize a lot of people. Governing is about deciding how to allocate resources. If I'm running for governor of Kiambu and I'm going to have a budget of 20 billion, you better believe you want someone who understands what are the needs of these people. How can I stretch this budget the most? How can I create value? How can I look at the county machinery and decide we need to be efficient, right? We can't spend, Kiambu, for example, in 2022, 2023 spent 89% of the budget on operating expenses. This is travel. This is cars for politicians. This is dining for politicians. If you have a budget of 17 billion and you spend 89% of that budget on eating, on flying around, you are not actually serving people. And this is why you see accountants with 100 billion of transfer from the national government over 10 years. There is no measurable improvement. in terms of progress on the ground, because when the money gets there, it's actually not serving the purpose that was intended for it. So I could not disagree more with the previous speaker that say that, you know, you don't need people, you need people that are smart. And I'm not saying that skills are the only thing. You need skills, but you also need someone who is a big believer in accountability, who understands that, you know, being in government is public service. It's not one or the other. You can't, you know, when you elect these columns that we have, for example, in parliament, you can see what happens. I mean, let me ask you this question. We complain in this country about the fact that, for example, you know, President Ruto is taking loans every day and not being accountable for it. You know that we have a parliament. Your parliament is supposed to be keeping a check on the executive, but we fill our parliament with celebrities, people that don't know their job, and we expect accountability. You look around and you see this MPs that you see on Instagram. They're more focused on building their social media profiles as opposed to governing, as opposed to holding the executive accountable. Do you think Salatia knows that part of his job, or actually a big part of his job, is to actually keep the government accountable? You see some of these people that are nominated in parliament, they're not doing anything that has to do with governing or providing value to citizens. And this is the problem of electing clowns and thieves and generally people that have no business being in public service. I hate to be tough, but you know, I get upset when I look around and see what's happening. Your politicians' jobs are not to walk around the county passing bursaries. That's not their job, but they've embraced that because that's how we in Kenya decide to look at as the main responsibility for these people. We ask.
Maybe Bonnie, I'll give you another 30 seconds to land in order to allow also some more contribution.
Yeah. Let me land. I'll step back for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Davids.
Thank you, Bonnie. And you put across a very, very good argument. Though, and actually, I think part of what ails this country is we talk about governance. The reasons why we are probably here on this spaces every other day is because our governance it's gone to the dogs. And maybe at the point of independence, even those who took the reins of power and the successive governments have probably not had a proper understanding of how to govern and run a country. And I think I do agree. That's part of the problem that brings us here. Wallace, I'd like to hear what you have to say. I've seen Keoti Sonko, I've also seen Redemptor. Happy to see Professor Kibwana, and among others. Welcome to the space. And Wallace, we have some people called apprentices. We have people who've never stepped in a class, but they're mentored and they end up probably becoming good leaders. Is it just Bad? I've seen you, and Flavia, I'd have you after Wallace. So I'll call you if you don't mind. So Wallace, what's your take on this question, and where do you place people who don't have this, the academic background, but have been mentored and have been apprentices and become good leaders, or they turn out to be leaders, not necessarily good?
Thank you, Obed. I'm believing I'm coming through clearly. Now, when it comes to leadership, I've been passionate about that for over a decade, and in training people in that direction, especially in servant leadership. And one of the things you need to realize when people hear the term leader, first you have to look at the traditional perspective. People have been thinking for a long time that the leader is, number one, the most popular person. They have this mindset of if your father was a leader, you should be the next leader. Jaramogi was the leader, Raila should follow. Jomo was the leader, Uhuru should follow. There's that mythology of you should inherit it. It's part of inheritance. For goodness sake, you see it even in churches, where if the man is the pastor, his son should take over. But anyway, the concept here becomes that the traditional mindset of Kenyans of leader is, again, who is the loudest among our community? Who is the loudest in our midst, who will go and fight for our positions? Who is the richest? We have had the wrong concept of what leadership is by the time we are looking to define a great leader. And one of the things we thought we were doing by insisting leaders have degrees, because that's when now people started buying them. We didn't realize they would buy them. Anyway, we knew it would happen. There are a lot of people in public office right now whose papers are very shoddy, okay? We were trying to confuse that leadership comes with brains. And it is not, it's important to be literate, it's important to be intelligent, but leadership at its core is more about your vision than your intelligence. It's more about being able to connect with people. As a leader, you should be visionary enough to know which people to add to your team that are not yes men, that are able to get the job done. And good examples, even from the corporate world, you'd find people like Ford. They would just say, I have a vision for this engine. I am going to look for the right people to make it, and I will push them and inspire them to do it, okay? So the idea is, our challenge for leadership has been thinking it's about education. And yet, in a simple statement, Kenya's problem is not lack of brains. It is lack of character and lack of integrity. Because even if somebody has papers, but they are corrupt, it does not matter which office or position you put them in, they are going to turn it into a selfish mission. So leadership, that's why leadership is more about what's the character of this person, what vision do they have, do they truly connect with the people and have empathy for them, so that you do not have somebody in public office saying, if I was in charge, I would be killing 4,000 Gen Zs every day. In other words, they have no compassion. In fact, they would not have time for this, we call them pissing contests, insulting each other. What have you read? What do you know? Those are the things that show you these people are not leaders. It is important, yes, to be educated. It is important, because how else do you expand your mind even as a leader? Great leaders are great readers. They read a lot, they read well, okay? To expand their mind, to give them more vision. They expose themselves. So it's important to be able to understand things from an intelligent level. But when it boils down to it, if you do not have compassion for people, which is why you see you are raising taxes on people, you don't feel them, you don't connect with them, you're not living the same lifestyle. You're in a different space altogether. That's what makes people not be leaders. For example, look at PLO. PLO has never managed to run Lumumba. Very intelligent guy, very sharp, but he doesn't. He can say a lot of great things very articulately, but he doesn't make a good leader. Look at Miguna, very intelligent, very sharp brains, but look at the arrogance he exudes. Look at the way he carries himself. Do not confuse education with leadership potential. You can be a professor and an idiot leader. America was led by George Bush. You remember, George Bush was not even very bright, because leadership is, what's your vision? What's your passion? Where are you taking people? How do you want to serve people? Have you connected with them? Have you understood them? Do you have proposed ideas? Because a leader, like what he has is a vision that he knows serves everybody, helps everybody. And he's able to inspire the right people and even the people he's serving to move together as a collective, as a team towards that corporate vision. That is what leadership is. And great leadership is to have that character and that moral fiber and moral integrity that you are able to inspire people from your personality, not from your words. Kenyans think the person who talks the fastest, the person with the most, that's why we get politicians. Politicians are liars. They talk out of both corners of their mouth. You think this guy is very sharp because, in fact, we reached a point we had entertainers. You get, we like the way he talks. Oh, he tells us vitendawillis, as much as you know what I'm talking about. But all of them insults. Look at Sonko. Sonko would go to pray and start insulting the devil. These are things on television. Okay, let me land in a minute. But the point here is to say this. It's important to be educated. To be a leader, you must be able to expand your mind. So you must be definitely literate. You must be somebody who loves to engage with books and look for new ways to serve people. But it is not the primary thing. Because now there's a difference between leadership and management, and people tend to confuse the two. Management is what our brother Bonnie is talking about. Can you manage a company with a 10 billion budget? Okay, management is handling resources well. That's also part of being a great leader, yes. But the leadership at its core, at its essence, is about a person of integrity with a vision that inspires people and moves them forward with hope, like the way Obama was when he kicked up in 98, if we remember, the vision of hope, or a Mandela, or a Gandhi. It's not always the brains. Gandhi wasn't known for his brains. Obama was smart, why not, okay? But not everybody who has come to the top it was about first their brains. It was about how they could inspire and move people. So let me land at that point, but let's not confuse the two. They are both important, but leadership at its core, if you're talking about great leadership, you will not be talking about books. You talk about books, you're a bit off tangent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wallace. Again, as you always say, Ukabila ni ujinga, beautiful, and we need to change and stop Ukabila. But I'm happy that the movement is not involved in Ukabila. Ila, I'll give you an opportunity to speak, but we haven't had a female voice, and I think we need to allow, with your permission, to indulge Femi Bad and Flavian, and I've seen, I saw Auntie Redemptor somewhere here. Oh yeah, she's here. So, Eli, unless it's a burning issue, would you like us to allow Femi Bad? Remember, we talk about 2/3 gender rule, and we try to practice it here.
We talk about that, and that's true. But we also talk about fairness. In fairness, Flavia was here before Femibad, so I don't know what that means.
Flavia, with your permission, because you've spoken before here, let's welcome Femibad, then we come to you. Would that be okay? Be a gentle lady. Thank you very much. So, Femibad, welcome to the space. And what's your take on this today?
Thanks, Flavia. That's very kind of you. But I will not mind you going. But anyway, I tend to disagree with the subject. I think one can lead without formal papers, because papers are not necessarily required to be a good reader. Leadership is about vision, influence, decision making, one having emotional intelligence and ability to inspire and guide others. And for that, you cannot learn in any school. That comes within your character. If we look at the history, we see people who are self-made entrepreneurs and community leaders, revolutionaries. Most of them did not have formal education, but they excelled due to their skills and experiences and wisdom. But as someone said here before, I get to a point where I say, however, in a structured environment like corporate setting, government or academia, credential may be required to access leadership position. That said, but even though you have those papers, you also need to acquire, to have the ability that matters more than just having the right papers. Because leadership is built on knowledge. You need to be adaptable, and you need to have the ability to connect and motivate people, which is sad that most people most leaders in our parliament don't possess this. And that is why we find ourselves having issues with the leadership that we have at the moment, that people have to go to the street to be able to be listened to, which is, as a reader, I don't think we need to get there. You need to listen to people, because the people you are reading, they're the people who are experiencing this problem. They are going to the streets to fight. So it's sad that I have to agree with Sudi, but not in the part of his leadership, the part that you do not need papers to be a good leader. I think, Vizani, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Femi Bad. And actually, we are happy that at least you're here. And that you're pained to agree with Sudi speaks to a lot, especially in this country. However, it's the beauty of what we befrought ourselves, and
Yes.
we need to deal with that. If you don't mind, you be able mute your microphone so that we allow your speaker, so that we allow others to speak. Thank you so much, Eli. Back to you, and then have Flavia speak, because Flavia, thank you so much. You see, would have missed out Femi, but contribution, and it's really nice. And Kyoti Sonko, we'd like you to come up here and tell us what you want to do for Lily. You probably have your voters in here. Eli.
Thank you very much, Obed. I love the job and the conversation that is happening here because, unknown to many, we really champion for good governance, and not just from the aspect of dictionary definition. The practicality of leadership is what matters to us. And that is why we have partnered with a lot of interesting parties to bring you a conversation that will take 2 days of nothing but learning and unlearning. And in that conversation, there is no hierarchy. So if you come there and you're expected to be called Mweshimiwa, I want to disappoint you. But if you come there and you want to experience and experiment what leadership is and what it takes, this is the place to be. On the 13th and 14th of March, we have a great session on purpose driven leadership. And that is our theme for the year 2025. And as we start this talk, it is culminating to that date. And I want to request all of you who are tuned in, Femibad, we have received, as of yesterday and today, we got 20 more, rather 10 more promotions for individuals who would love to come, and they, one way or another, cannot be able to pay for the ticket. We have sponsorship for 10 free tickets. If you think you want that ticket and you love to come, kindly, there is an email address on all our platforms. Just say your name and tell us you love to come. It is a 2 days event, all inclusive. So all you have to take is your personal effects and come. And for those of you who be parcel of this journey, we welcome you to sign up and pay for that fees. It is there is the promo one, which is 2,500. There's the normal one, which is about 5,000 shillings for the 2 days. If you want to really make a difference and be part of that great conversation, you can do that. We welcome you. Please don't feel pressed to overpay or underpay. Do according to what is comfort. And if you still would love to come, you don't have the means, we would love you to be there. Just send us an email and we'll contact you. Now, the next person I want to invite to the talk is Flavia. And Flavia told me, Eli, I love the work you're doing. I would love to be in that
But
contest. I cannot make it.
Eli, you didn't tell
Yes.
me where have you assigned Professor Kibwana something to do when he comes there? Because I'm hoping to see him there.
Let me tell you something. You know, Prof told us on this space. Okay, well, on Mizani space. I am looking forward. I can't get his donation. And when that time comes and the Mizani space will be happening, I want to ask us to go there because I also want to see what is this purpose-driven leadership. Prof, I'm bad at imitating
You did a
voices.
bad job of it.
Well, so
keep your day job. Keep your day job.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. But anyway, let's get serious here for a second. Obeds, you're embarrassing me. I can't do that. Anyway, Prof, if you are going to come to this event, clearly you have enough to share. And that is why purpose-driven leadership is important to us. I would love to invite Flavia, who told me, Eli, I can't make it in person. Why don't you think of hybrid? Guess what? We went, had a meeting, and we figured out how we can have a hybrid session. So as long as when we hit 50 participants online, we will welcome you to that event. Please just commit your 2 days. You can't attend half of the event. It will not be of any benefit to you. Commit your 2 days, show up, and there's an option when you're signing up to choose the virtual or the physical attendance. Flavia, your prayer was answered. That is what leadership is. Welcome. The mic is yours.
Now, one, I'm going to advocate for the program. I'm going to speak to anyone that I know so that they can turn up virtually, and then we make the 50% number. So you've given me something to do. One, I I'm going to start speaking on what everyone has talked about. I was watching something recently, and unfortunately, of late, I watch more than I read. But I'm in school, so I am equally reading, so it's important. But I watch more than I read when I'm not reading. So I was watching something, and the person was saying, if you sit in a room and you want to identify the most stupid person, exact words used by him, you will check and see who is the meanest person. The person who is being a bully to everyone, the person who is mistreating everyone, the person who is not kind to other people, that is the stupid person in the room. And what that means is the role that intelligence, education, consequently intelligence plays in a person is that it helps you to tame your most primal urges. When you sit with someone who is new and someone who is not a person that you do not know, and someone who is not like you, they might be different because of tribe. They might be different because they are different race. They might be different because they are shorter or taller. Your immediate primal urge is to try to be mean to them because they are not like you. But if you've gone through a setting, which is a school, in school, and this is what we ought to realize, in school, someone does not only learn mathematics, then someone does not only learn law, but also you're living with people. And it teaches you, one, how to live with people. And in school, you will encounter someone who is poorer, someone who is richer, and it will teach you how to have empathy. And it will teach you how to have diplomacy, so that when you come across people who are bullies and people who are not kind and people who are not who are different from you, it will teach you how to live with them. So when you come out of school, it's not only the paper that you acquire, but the experience of living with other people and how to live with them. And it helps you at most times, if not every time, to tame the primal urge of you not being a good person. I will use an example of myself. Not to say that I am intelligent. In fact, I'm in school because I consider myself not to be intelligent enough. But as a younger person, I will be quick to speak what is on my mind. And I will not take a moment to think, oh, how will the other person feel if I say this? So I will be quick to say, for example, someone tells me something, I was just like, oh, that's so stupid. You didn't think through that. But right now, I will sit back and tell myself, why is that person saying that? Probably it's because they've lived through this and that and that and that. Like every time before I speak on anything, I actually have to think before I say it. And when I'm thinking, I have to think of the consequence to the other person, the impact on the words that I'm saying to the other person. And I believe that came as a result of school. So as we speak about leadership, let us not negate the impact of education. Not to say that education by itself is sufficient, but we are a sum total of what the experiences in life. And education is important, integrity is important, everything else is important, but it's not one at the exclusion of the other. So let's not pick one and just attack and say, oh, this person is wrong, this person is right. It's not one at the exclusion of another. It's a combination of everything. And then I want to give an example, and I think this is a policy that I want as many of us to champion on. There's a country that I've ever lived in, and their police force is the kindest. I spoke this on another platform. Their police force is the kindest. They have integrity, they do the right thing. And the minimum requirement for you to join that police force is for you to be a graduate. Should I say graduate? For you to be a graduate, you must be a graduate, and most of them have masters and more for you to join the police force. And every time everything goes wrong, it was easy for me to find a police to help me because I know they will do the right thing. We cannot say the same for our Kenyan police force because I think education is part of the factor. Of course, poverty and everything else is part of the factor. But I believe if our police force had a bit of education, they will take a moment to question an order to kill. They will take a moment to question a directive to stop protesters. They will take a moment to question, why are we being asked to kill the protesters? So I want to say education is important, integrity is important, everything else is important, but none at the exclusion of the other. But for me, mostly, here's what I want to say about leadership. A leader to me is a model. What does that mean? Is that it's someone who people can look at and want to imitate. This is someone who has something that is outstanding. And in Kenya, I think where we get it wrong is how to pick the outstanding thing. I think mostly we've been focusing on lineage. If someone comes from a family which has been in leadership, then we continue. We are quick to give their sons and their daughters, not because they are most deserving, not because they are most capable, but just because they are born from the lineage where leadership stemmed from. And then the other confusion that we've been having is people who have money. As long as they come here, they can go to in TVs and social media and flaunt here and there and come give us a few coins here and there. Then we think, oh, because now see, they go to the streets and they give people money. Oh, now there'll be good leadership. And you fail to realize a country, a county government, a city government, as anything else, is a business. So you need someone who can run this country as a business to make it successful. And that is the only way we can thrive. So I think as a Kenya, as a people, we need to change and see what it is that we look out in people that we want to lead us. And that cannot be lineage, and that cannot be their monetary capability. We have proven experience that that does nothing for us. For me, what stands out as the biggest, and I think strongest thing to make someone a great leader is purpose. If someone has purpose in them, do you need for me to land? Obed, I see you raising your hand. I don't know if I'm over time.
Yeah, I'll give you a minute.
All right.
Because the mic requests are many. We
All
need
right,
to allow
okay.
as many to be able to
All
speak,
right,
but
1 minute.
you're making a lot of sense.
All right,
You're making a lot of sense.
Okay, if someone has purpose, I think that's what makes a great leader. And purpose comes from one, the person is chosen. And you will walk and you've met people and you look at them and you realize this person is a chosen person. But because they did not have the other attributes that Kenyans we are going for, then we fail to choose this person and go for another because they do not have what it makes. And another attribute that I find in purpose is the person has to have, again, something greater. They have to have the greater urge of helping people as opposed to helping themselves. They have to have the greater urge of making a change as opposed to making the change for themselves. So that's what we need to look at. And then another aspect that will signify purpose is empathy. So let's make a round and choose people who have the purpose in them to actually lead this country, make a change in this country, and make an impact in this country. So I finish with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Flavia, today you are burning with a lot of ideas. I'm hoping you guys are grasping these ideas, and towards the end of this talk, you'll have something to take home with you to change your perspective on leadership. So we are asking, what makes a great leader? There is the aspect of school, there's the aspect of skills, and some of you have already given us your your contribution to this. Wallace is also quoting emotional intelligence more than intelligence quotient or quotient. Nikiongea hivyo Obed ananicheka. Anaweza alienda primary school gani?
Akasirika sana lakini sawa tu.
You know why I say that? Because Absaret would have spoken the same way. Africa's leadership problems are about integrity and character more than they are about intelligence. Do not confuse people who bribe, that is, rig their way into public office, with leaders. Their lack of character precedes their fakeness and failure. That is according to Wallace. 254 for life. Leadership requires skills in understanding where to apply book smart and when to apply street smarts. Okay. Leaders at bare minimum requires the basics, rather, leadership at bare minimum requires the basics of education. Otherwise, we would allow animals to lead in our institution. Please be reminded, our president does not just have basic education, he's a PhD holder. And this country is doing very well. This country is on its way to becoming first world. This country is headed by the smartest ones in the rooms. In fact, last time I checked, when people asked what is a tax on motor vehicle, they were telling us it's like a tax on asset. So define the tax on asset. It's like we are taxing you because you have a car. Kipto, it's all right. Let's go to you. 254 for life. You've declared your interest in becoming a leader. And many Kenyans have said, unaona tulimwonea 18. Sasa ametoka kwa Twitter spaces ya kuambia Ruto FU and come back to speak French. Sasa amekuwa kiongozi. 254. Wewe kama kiongozi mtarajiwa, what will make you a great leader than Didmas Baraza without specifically talking about Kimilili politics, but on a national...
Eli,
Yes.
Eli, with your permission again, if you don't mind, let's cue in Redemptor. We had a female voice list. After that, we'd have KOT 254, Marabu. There are a few bit, and I request that you see, today we have a bit of a demand on the mics. I'd request that if you've spoken, we can recycle so that we allow us to contribute, and then we come back again if there's something to contribute. I'd really appreciate it. So with your direction, Eli, I think let's allow Redemptor to make a contribution. Then we'll have another round on the speakers, starting with KOT and quite a number. So we'll start with KOT after Redemptor. Redemptor?
Hey, good evening. Sijui Ella amekula nini leo, amefurahi sana.
Napenda waongozi na viongozi. That's why.
Ni kama nilipata hii mic before KOT Sonko, alafu ki 254 hajasimama kiti. So sijui umekula nini leo. Anyway, it's good to be here. When I saw this topic, when I saw you had put this subject, I actually booked a reminder. And I told myself, I hope these two gentlemen were not inspired by Sudi to do this conversation. And I came to this space late, I'm sorry.
We've disappointed you.
The first word I heard when I entered the space was Sudi. And yes, I will excuse because when we are looking for topics to do this every week, it's exhausting. And like any creative, you're inspired and triggered to hold conversation based on what is trending. So for that, I forgive you. However, this conversation cannot be, I agree with Sudi. I don't agree with Sudi. It cannot be. Let tushuka kwa hiyo basi. And the reason we are shukering from that basi is also because of the context that whole conversation was started. That whole conversation was started on a TV interview by one Senator Sifuna when he said, our president said he has a PhD and he hangs out with class whatever leavers. So ilianza huko juu kabisa, ikarol ikatupata hapa kwa space tukiongea kuhusu. So for me, I would really request we don't even use it. It's a good topic, minus that whole context. So I'll go to documentation. Do you need a birth certificate to exist? Do you even need an ID to be a Kenyan? Some of these things happen because that's the way the world has been fashioned, that you need a paper. And it is one field where papers don't matter. It's in the arts. Some of the best musicians have never been to any school to learn how to play a guitar. And that's why they say you listen, you learn by ear. And the best musicians, when they're learning how to play instruments, or even when you're a choir master, they close their eyes. They close their eyes to listen. And then they hear that's key number these. They don't even know the names of the keys. Marabusto is a musician, he can tell me these things. They know something, they don't know how they know it. So there are some things that are innate, and leadership is one of them. Like I've said, we need documentation because that's the world we live in. So you need a school certificate, you need to learn how to communicate. That doesn't make a leader. That one I say, and I'm not siding with anybody. However, I'll tell you this. the worst thing about leadership, when you talk about leadership in terms of what we are talking about, leaders of the country, it's often because they are people's representatives, they have to speak. It's more about telling and less about showing. And when it comes to showing, unfortunately for the Kenyan citizens, whom I blame, it is showing opulence, wealth, nicely dressed. All these men, hata wale hawana nywele nyeupe siku hizi, wanapakwa rangi, wanapakwa mafuta, they're all starting to look the same. The showing part became more important than even the telling. Now, the telling is also not necessary. If you remember the first group of MPs that came to this country, they were very eloquent because they were imitating the colonialists, the way they spoke. I remember my MP, the late Honorable Gideon Mutiso. You remember people like Paul Ngei, you remember the Matibas. You listen to these people, they spoke more British English than the British themselves. And then we went back to speaking normally after decolonizing. I think we were decolonized a bit. Then we started interacting with the people from the West again, and then we started picking twings and wanting to be like them again. And the reason I'm saying this is because the representative, think of the lowest level of a representative, even a village elder, mzee wa nyumba kumi, most people are actually picked because they speak well. Not even the quiet ones, not eloquence, but they speak well. Some are very slow in the way they speak, but they're identified as leaders because first they express it through speaking. Think about all the leaders you ever had. From primary, you had a prefect, a monitor. You had a CU chair ladies, chairman. Then you had your pastor, you had a lawyer. All these people had to speak. Does it mean the best speakers then should be leaders? No. Technology has made it possible for somebody who cannot even speak to be able to express themselves. You know, there are speech writers. We're in the era of technology where people can actually be helped write their speeches because they've got the leadership in their heart, but they might not have it in their mouth. They might not be the most eloquent. And so I would say that then we talk about the school, because you brought the word school versus skill. I think the school involves the mind. You know, how do you acquire knowledge? And there's a very eloquent speaker who was talking about, I don't read that much, I watch. Watching is acquiring knowledge. Listening is acquiring knowledge. And so because we are taught, read a lot of books. Some of us who have learning disabilities, reading disabilities, some of us who listen more than that we like to visualize, we were almost disqualified. Amjasoma sana. And so that's one of the misconceptions, that be well read. No, be well listen. The Sikiza as much, that's why we have audio books. There are people who like the smell of books. There are people who love when the pages are turning. There are people who like to write. But acquiring knowledge has now other means. So let's debunk this theory about being well read. When I tell people I write books, they assume I've read lots of books. I scan through books. I can't read. In fact, in school, I couldn't read for 1 hour continually. Yeah, there's someone who can sit for 3 hours and read. I read, I get distracted. Some would have HDD, whatever, all those classifications. So the reason why decolonizations in communication and even aping what the colonialists talked about, leadership, building roads, getting education, eradicating illiteracy, and all those things, that was adaptability. We need to have grown as a nation to be able to say no. Zile shida tulikuwa nazo 1963 saizi, they've been taken by of events, because the people we have, they are schooled, their mind is fine, they are skilled, they have experience. The skills use the senses, your hands, your touch, all those things that use your 5 senses. But I think the biggest matter in leadership, and Bonnie speaks about it a lot, and maybe not using the words that I use, the biggest qualities of leadership are heart matters. It is character. That's where integrity comes from. It is even what Flavius talks about, empathy, kindness. So in terms of even mentioning the people that were being talked about, what you see when you see Sifuna is a very well-read man, very eloquent man. And when you see his friend who says, I am smarter than this other guy, you feel him. Remember, I gave you an example of a musician closes his eyes and then listens to the music and knows when the music is off key. That is what is happening in this nation. If you close your eyes, if you never know what Sudi looks like, even though he likes to do TikToks, even if he has all the money to employ a production manager to position his camera, so that we don't just see his teeth. Sorry, I had to do that. I mean, he has the resources to do a good production and communicate. Even if you never saw him, even if you never saw what Sifuna looks like. Sorry, I'm using the two fellas who brought this whole topic. Even if you never saw them and you just close your eyes and you listen to them, there's a part of you that gets who they are, the heart matter. There's a part of you that can tell an arrogant person, a showy person, a very smart person, a very genuine person. And so I'll finish this by saying, Kenyans, let's start listening more with discernment. Because for the last 20 years, I remember when Kenyatta, Uhuru started looking for uongozi, my mother said, he talks just like his father. And that was enough for my mother to vote for him. So we need to get away from being wooed because people speak well, they are very eloquent. That is how we got in this mess that we're in. The last category I forgot to mention when I said pastor, lawyer, your pastor, all those people who use the oratory skills. The politician is the actor. There's a space that I go to inakuanga na kina Nzioka. Nzioka wako wapi? Sijamwona kwa space siku nyingi. Since he declared his candidacy to be president of Kenya, I've not seen him on space. But he talks about energy. There's this notion people have that guy came to the space and said, if somebody acted akatukona akakuwa president, basi mtu mwingine akuja act tu vile ule mwingine ali-act. And I don't like to keep talking about the young people of this country. I've said that in any leadership, you'll find there's always the poster person of that era. Look at Martin Luther King. He was eloquent. Was he the only one who was in that front? No, probably he took over because of the way he spoke. Look at Obama. You would speak and who everyone was. That man is a powerful speaker. Look at Mandela, a bit more dull in his speaking, but he had depth. Look at Winnie, who ended up being the leader of that liberation front. Beautiful woman, very passionate in her speaking, and very judged because of how the things she did that men do and they're not judged. Anyway, in a nutshell, I'm saying a lot of judgment on leadership skills is the oratory, unfortunately. We don't go to look at their work like the bookworms, the accountants, the economists like Inaboni, Stella. Those people tend to speak less and show more. And so I really hope as a nation, we can learn to balance. And I always say mine is communication, mine is to monitor how people are speaking. And this generation, we have to be careful that we do not talk like the colonialists. We don't adapt what was the need in 1963 and try to force it on us in this era. Let's also learn to accommodate each other in terms of when we are expressing ourselves, so that if someone is not as eloquent and they can lead you, you give them the chance. I think I don't have enough time to explore what I had thought about this topic because I started thinking about it. Yes, and hawa watu wanapenda TikTok. Waenda tu training kidogo tu wafunzwe a few things about camera etiquettes, what to do, because it's exhausting. And I don't know why they trend. It's exhausting to see them because first they don't have the content, and then they are not, what is it called? Photogenic. Kama inaitangwa nini? They are not that. So they are ending up miscommunicating the policies of the government because unaona unachoka. The last thing I'll say is this: how long are these people going to come to TV stations to debate? And why are some very nice, powerful speakers allowing themselves to go to these talk shows with these people? Because you can't be watching TV interviews and then you want to forward. Thank God for YouTube. I actually forward and I listen to the person I want to listen, but I also have to listen to this other person. So that when I come to this space and Obed has decided to speak about Sudi, then I know what Sudi did. Anyway, these people are overrated. Kenya is a great place with great leaders. Please take up leadership roles. KOT Sonko used to say, I'm not very good with the Queen's language, and I told you never to say that again. You're good in your own language, and Ulize is Okura. You can do it. Thank you for this space. Thank you to all the listeners. Asanteni.
Redemptor, you're saying people like me who are not photogenic should not take photos or appear on TikTok. Eli, back to you.
Back to you in studio, because I've been wondering why I'm not progressing on TikTok. It's because I try so hard not to have content, then I end up having content. Then I try to have a nice look alike, and I have enough. So I understand. Lakini Redemptor, unajua hujambia watu wa TikTok vizuri. Watakukujia. Don't say we didn't warn you. Okay, our soldiers on TikTok, you have your auntie for the weekend. Deal with her. Let mercy forgive her. But anyway, on a very, very serious note, it is 10 minutes to the top of the hour. And at this point, I want to engage more speakers. And for those of you who are sharing, continue sharing. Our basic question of the night is, what makes a great leader? And this is the aspect of school and skills, which has been discussed with most of the speakers that are here. But we'll still want to find out, when you design for me a leader. In the comment section, design for me a leader, and then a great leader. What comes to your mind when you think about a great leader? Is it the school? Is it the skill? Or forget about the second part of this. Just tell me, what makes a great leader? If you were to outline your leader, the one you desire to be or to lead you, how would you objectify them in this talk? KOT, on the 5th of July, 2024, you've gone in the records of history having been one young Gen Z unemployed who opted to say it as it is without sieving or second guessing their words. And I quote you, President Ruto, half of your government, sorry. This is now, in your cabinet, we have so many incompetent cabinet secretaries. And one of the names that you actually mentioned included the current CS Defense, if I'm not wrong, Murkomen. Why I'm bringing this to your attention?
Murkomen is internal security.
Yes, sorry, internal security. Pardon me. Defense is the other lady, and her name is Soipan.
Soipan.
Good. Thank you. Keoti Sonko, why I bring this to your memory is between the month of June and July ending into August, and throughout that period to what you are today, there's a lot of change that has happened in the things you say, how you say them, and what you look them to become. But one thing that we cannot ignore is the fact that you've actually said you're offering yourself for the position of a leader and a member of parliament for that matter. So if I was to add the aspect of unemployment, which is very, quote unquote, a common phrase in the young and youthful generation, then we have the Gen Zs who feel that their governments and the old men generation have let them down. What makes you or informs your decision to become a leader, if not a politician? Keoti.
Okay, thank you so much. Eli, this is a bit like because
What is with your microphone? Normally unakuanga very clear. You are hollow.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Wow, that's what I want to hear. Go ahead.
Sawa sawa. So mimi nitakuita Eli. Eli, first and foremost nataka niongele hii topic kidogo before I go to your question. That what makes a great leader? Is it school or skills? I can honestly tell you that what makes a great leader is the marriage between school and skills. Because at some point, you might be very, very sharp in school, but then you don't have those skills to lead. And at some point, you might have those skills to lead, but now when you go to school, there are a lot of things that you are taught, like decision making, emotional intelligence, and so on and so forth. So if you only have skills and you don't have, you haven't gone through a class to teach you these great factors, then it will be so hard for you to even lead or govern a certain society. So both school and skills, they need to intermarry to ensure that they bring up a better leader. And so kwa swali yako yenye umeniuliza, honestly, as we speak, currently, when you look at what is happening in our country, yeah, it is so easy for the older generations to get jobs than the young generations. And I think it's because the people we are having in the positions, they had friends when they were growing up. And now they feel like it's better to employ more of friends or their generation. So you find out that we, as the young people, we are still unemployed. So what made me to decide to vie for the position of member of parliament? It's the fact that what is really happening currently in our parliament. You know, as a member of parliament, you are not just a leader in your own constituency, but of course, when you make decisions, this decision affect the entire country. So you find out that the current generation, let me talk of the Gen Zs and the millennials, they don't have people who fights for them in that parliament. Yeah, simply because these are the people who are being used by the politicians. I will not call them leaders because there is no way a leader can use a young person to bring chaos or to, yeah, you find out that they are using these young people, especially, let me take an example of Bungoma. In Bungoma, when the electioneering period reaches, you'll find out that a lot of young people wanasanywa pamoja, and these young people are being given huko tunaitanga rungu, yeah, so they're being used for security purposes, and at some point they even go to disrupt a function. So you find out that a person who grows like a person in Bungoma, a young person in Bungoma, akijua the electioneering period is around the corner, of course wanajua kazi yao. The job is to be used by the politician. And so one of the things that ilifanya mimi I decide to vie for the MP is because of what is happening there. Most of the member of parliament, now for instance, my MP, he's kind of a guy who uses young people for his own benefits. But when it comes to pitching for them, maybe to get jobs, even to give them bursaries for education, he's not doing that. So personally, my vision as a member of parliament, Pale Kimilili, I'm trying to come up with the narrative of going to the parliament to ensure that I pitch for the young people in this nation to get jobs, because Najua, there is nobody who talks about jobs for the young people. In fact, there has never been a single day or a single time where such a motion is being discussed in the parliament. And also you find out that we have this instance where these members of parliament, they only talk about things that benefits themselves. Like for instance, utapata, they are talking about the car grants that will help them move from one place to another. Yeah, like today you'll find out that there is something I was reading on social media, whereby our own government is crying that hiyo pesa ya sijui aid from the US, which is around 5 billion, has been cut off. So they feel like people of Kenya watakuja kusuffer. But then when you look at what they're proposing in their budget, they're proposing over 5 billion for recreation. So something of the sort should be discussed in the parliament by the members of parliament, but unfortunately, most of them are crooks because they don't have those guards to air out the truth and what is happening. And so things of the sort ndio zinafanya, even as the young people, we feel like it's now our time to ensure that we go to that parliament and even to the Senate to table motions that will affect the people of Kenya positively. So easy as we speak, I'm on my way to Kimilili because it's a weekend. I need to go there to ensure that I engage with the people to see what they are suffering from. At some point, unaweza dhani they are suffering from unemployment, kumbe they're not suffering from unemployment, maybe something else. So I must go to the ground to ensure that I discuss with them. Ndio sasa hata hiyo mambo ya manifesto with the time I'll draft them depending on how I engage with them and what the people of Kimilili wants. Ellie?
Thank you, KOT. You know, I've listened to you because I respect the idea you decided that you are going to vie. And number two, the fact that it takes a lot of courage to do that. I'm also very happy to learn that you are learning the ropes too quick. You are actually speaking like one of them. You almost told us the way you will give us bursary and we'll make sure that pesa imefika mashinani. Today, as you're speaking, you're headed to Kimilili, typical politician, to see ground inasema nini over the weekend. But before I can allow you to fill us with these dreams and theater of dreams that are political, and please, I'm doing this as with a lot of love. Your mantra is accountability, transparency, and good governance. I would like for you to take 2 minutes to illustrate these issues that are guiding you as a principle of your leadership ambition. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, when you talk of accountability and good governance, remember, as a member of parliament, there are some allocations that these MPs are being given in their constituencies to ensure that they bring about development and so on and so forth. So for governance, honestly, before even a member of parliament decides to use those funds, as I said, I'm going to the ground currently to speak to the people of Kimilili and see what they are ailing from. Then after coming up, after collecting the ideas and views and what people wants you to do for them, then that allocation of money you have been given, I think you should now use it to what the people want. Because at some point, unaweza enda Kimilili uwapelekee, I don't know, like you go there, build them mini swimming pools, but those people don't know how to swim. You have to give them exactly what resonates with them. And then after that, for instance, now you've used a certain amount of money. There should be a clear pathway on which you need to explain how you've used this money, how you allocated on different projects. So I think by doing that, that's one of the ways where you can demonstrate your accountability. And then good governance, of course, as I said, as a leader, we have different types of leaders. We have a visionary leader. We have a leader who makes his own decisions. Yeah, and we also have a leader who makes decisions depending on how on how people want the decisions to be made. So personally, I feel okay. Personally, as when I become a member of parliament, Pale Kimilili, I'll not be kind of a leader who dictates on what needs to be done, but I'll be kind of a leader who will do things in accordance with how people feels like it should be done. Like currently, what is happening in our country? Ruto today is at Amuka because JKIA has been set on a blaze. And then Amuki aseme he wants to use 2 billion sijui kufanya nini, but we the people maybe wants it to be done in a different manner. So he needs to listen to the people. And so personally, I'm speaking from my own capacity, I should be listening to the people before making decisions. So that's what I feel I'll be doing Pale Kimilili. But of course, with the time, I'll also learn, because we said a good leader is a person who has skills and also a person who learns from day-to-day basis. So by engaging with these people who have been there, like the likes of Professor Kivuta Kibuana, these are the people who will now open up your mind to see how you use your skills and what you learn from them.
Thank you very much, KOT Sonko. Guess what? Because I am in a good mood, and that is what Redemptor asked me, I have a very great offer for you. I'll sponsor 2 days of your hands-on leadership training, courtesy of Mizani 254 and Serve Skills. And this is an opportunity you cannot say no to. If you want to miss out on that, you'll continue doing what other leaders or politicians have been doing, speaking in funerals and now making laws at funeral assemblies. I know it's a great way to mobilize, but guess what? I have a better deal for you. If you attend those 2 days event, I'll also sponsor one complete session for your training in leadership. I know you're following one in that university, but that's great. And now we are talking about education, but it's about transformational leadership, courtesy of Serve Skills. Please show up for that event.
Eli, you're sounding like a politician because you made a decision which is a roadside declaration. But on a light note,
No,
Chaotic
this is not
Sonko will be
outside
looking forward to
declaration.
hosting you.
Take that back. Take that back. I'm speaking on behalf of the organization. Go ahead.
This is our next side declaration then. But we'll be looking forward to having Chaotic Sonko. Please make sure you come. Let's engage with Kenyans because this is what we want to get out of. We don't want to have an echo chamber where we're just speaking without being practical. And for the open space technology approach, it's everybody has an opportunity to co-create. And that's what we want to do. Make that difference, network with people. You never know. Your campaign manager or whoever is going to sponsor you probably is in that team. Eli, back to you. I think we need to have Kenya for Kenyans to go. Thank you for being patient. There's so much pressure on the mics. I request that all of us be patient. We will have as many of us speak. And then we have, after Kenya for Kenyans, we have Bismarck, then 254 and Marabu, and then Prof. We'll take a lot of time to listen to you. I'll give you that time. I don't want to put pressure on you. So Kenya for Kenyans.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Lynette Kieti. I'm based in the US. My contribution on this discussion is that when I was in high school, we had a school song that the title of the song was "To Serve is to Reign." And I think that is very important. You have to serve the people in order to lead the people. And so these are the sort of skills that one needs to be a leader. We see a lot of leaders in this country that are trying to serve themselves. But what is important is to serve the people. And from my perspective is having your, you hear a lot about some leaders, oh, his heart is in the right place, but he can't lead because, you know, he can't speak, he doesn't have economics. I think that having the heart in the right place, as others have said before, is one very important component. It actually serves a big, that's already one that has the good groundwork to lead people. The other thing I wanted to say is, I think I'm just following up from what Flavia was mentioning about. I think what happens is that we don't have good values. So I want to say that a good leader is the one that demonstrates the values of the people. And as a people, we need to really identify what are these good values for us. It's got to be honesty, integrity, kindness, and hard work. I feel that as a country, we have come to really not look at hard work in a positive way. Everyone's looking for shortcuts. How do I get to the top the quickest without doing anything? And I think no good comes out of that. So it's got to be trying to change the values of the country to the right values, and then trying to seek the people that demonstrate those values, and those are the right leaders for the country. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. Actually, when you speak to that, you bring to mind a book by Brian Tracy that talks about something for nothing. And a lot of people sometimes actually want to achieve or get something without really putting in the work. And that's not how it should be. Bismarck, you have an opportunity to make your contribution. Welcome to the conversation.
Okay. You can hear me?
Very well, loud and clear.
Okay, this is a topic that I love most, leadership. I think we could have named it leadership in the 21st century because my thinking is some of even our leaders are even in some centuries we can't even name because the way even they speak to us in front of leadership and anything that matters leadership, it's cruel and a lot of arrogance. That's really destroy our progress. When we are talking about leadership in the 21st century, education is a must have. I don't think there is any way that a leader in the 21st century can be like someone wakota to do. First of all, education is not about a full or anything to do with it. As much as it matters that you must have some qualification academically, but also just that duration when you are undergoing education, there's some mental changes and the interaction that occurs that you must have a really, really human interaction to know that everybody, like we don't have limits to like tribes or anything. Like I can remember for me when I was in campus, we used to stay with someone from college and I am a Meru. We used to stay in the same room. So we used to share things. So that person, if I hear something like Linda, who is is a Linda somewhere saying that some people from, for example, Centros would be chased back to their place. I feel like there's zero progress in when we choose our Lindas. We should choose a Lindas who is not.
Bismarck, you went quiet. Okay. What he's saying, I think he's almost agreeing with Bonnie Mwangi. Bonnie Mwangi says that how could we appoint a governor in Nairobi who didn't have the patience to sit in class, at least, and then we give them a responsibility. And I think I agree a lot with what he's saying. It's important that we do that. 254, your opportunity to make a contribution to the conversation. Have Marabu, then we listen to Prof speak to us.
Good evening, Obeds. Good evening, Eli. As usual, great to see the space. I wasn't aware that the space was changing time, but happened to join in at a very crucial time. And of course, thank you to all the speakers who spoke before me. In your capacity, I think you've shared a lot of knowledge that Kenyans need to hear. For me, I think to underscore the conversation, I might sound like I'm a bit strict on this, but I do believe that leadership requires those book smarts as a bare minimum. And the reason why I say so is because we know what is going on in the country today, and the reason why we are saying a lot of these things are failing, both internally and externally in terms of foreign relations as a country, is that we have people who fall short of understanding the jobs they currently hold in those offices. So fortunately or unfortunately to say, when you understand or have the basic understanding of how systems work, that is where now the book smarts kick in. However, now the street smarts that I was talking about kick in what we would commonly call as character, your mannerisms, how you talk to people. Now that's when street smarts kick in, to understand or be aware of situational analysis. Now, the problem is, I heard Bonnie very well, and this is where I say book smarts is very important. For majority of us in this space and in this country as a whole, and probably even worldwide, running a country is no joke. Some of the money that even in a third world country people manage is a very tall order. And I'll say this simply because this is what you see in our society. Anyone who touches what an MP touches in terms of a salary, they always do the same thing. And it's like, rinse and repeat for every single member of parliament. So you're out there buying a new house, you're out there buying a new flashy car, which is probably a Prado, which we all know Kenya it's like the ID for an MP or an MCA. And if you're the president, again, it's been now a culture that we've seen. Every new president we get a change of all vehicles in government. It's like that's the normal thing to do. But that is why I say that is the clear representation that leadership does not exist in this country, because people fail to understand that leadership in itself is a skill, and that skill has to be nurtured. It cannot be, taught or inherently you're born with it and you know everything. It has to be nurtured in various ways. So we talk of natural leadership, where some people are very good orators, just like what Redemptor was saying. And we also talk of leadership in the sense that, other people train to become leaders in different fields. That's why you have engineers, we have pilots, because they're leaders, but again, they train to become leaders. So even if you're molded or guided, part of the shortcomings you will have is that it'll get to a point whereby if you don't substitute your guidance with some book smart or some knowledge backing it up, then you end up floating. You have a ceiling of what you can do in that particular position. And which is exactly what we see in Kenya. We have people who say, I've been under the wing of so many politicians, I believe I'm a good leader. Okay, fine. But when you come to running a budget, for example, how do you understand when people talk about taxation policy? What do you really understand about it? When people talk about macroeconomics, microeconomics, when people talk about foreign policy, what do you really understand about it? And that's where the basics of education now come in. So much as some people want to say, no, it's not necessary for you to have an education. There are certain basics of education you must have. For example, you need to be able to communicate properly and coherently for people to understand you. And also, you need to be able to understand what people are explaining to you in the simplest manner possible. Which is why I intentionally said, if you don't have these skills, then we'd probably even have cows in parliament and allow them to make some of our policies. And sometimes it's very ridiculous to even say this, but people who own dogs will tell you dogs are better in dangerous situations than even human beings because they have instincts. Why? Because naturally they're protectors, so they know how to react in situations and they learn it over time. So as human beings, even when we're talking about leadership, sometimes it is also important to say, yes, book smarts are indeed good, but they're not the only thing that will make a great leader. You need to also adapt it as you move along in your journey, which is why you get, even in a job profile, if you apply for a job, there are those jobs we call entry-level jobs, there are those jobs we call mid-level management jobs, senior-level management jobs, and then we go to executive-level jobs, because those years of experience now carry with them that nurturing and adaptability that is required. And unfortunately to say, the reason why this is important when talking about leadership in our country is that we've gotten a point in our history that we need to be able to signify the difference that the old system has only brought us so far. And yes, there have been gains through this kind of leadership, but it now has hit that hard ceiling. And now that hard ceiling is what we are finding pains with, because the old rules of, roadside declarations, as you call them, obits, they have expired their lifetime in this country. And so people need to be able now to have conversations that have substance in them. So when you say, I'm going to build a road, people can really ask you, okay, what does this road do for me in my daily life as a citizen? Then you as a leader can come back and say, okay, if I build this road, then banks will come. And if banks come, they will give you loans to start businesses, build homes, and that is how we grow your area. And eventually you'll have security because those banks will come. If you give such an explanation, then it makes sense. And just to correct Eli, because I know Redemptor said it, I have not declared for any seat, and I'm not intending to declare any seat, because unfortunately, the African culture, most people think leadership as a role that involves politics and going into public office. But I do believe personally that leadership is also in some of these conversations we have. There are some people who are very, very good in just talking to people and guiding them the right way, which is why people like teachers are very crucial in our society, because some of the morals we have as people come from teachers. And teachers are not the most highly paid people as a profession, but it's a noble profession because the great people all pass through teachers. How we mold our families is based on how we were taught by our teachers, you know. So for me, I believe leadership takes different roles. Everybody can be a leader, yes, but people also need to understand, where does your leadership ability apply? It can be in terms of advisory, it can be in terms of criticism, which is also part of a leadership role. So you can be an opposition, just like what we are doing right now. This is also part of leadership, because we are able to identify the shortcomings of our government and say, this is what we feel should be the right direction. And that also is leadership in its sense. So it's not dignified, or it's not praised by getting all those, synonyms and abbreviations that come with appointments. But it's simply understanding, where do I apply and mix what I've learned in school and in life, so that I'm able to deliver better for people. So I'll land at that. Over back to you, Obed, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, 254. I think you speak to the fact that we probably need to have a balance of both. We need basic education to, support whatever it is that we have in terms of our capacity, in terms of leadership. Marabu Stock, I'd like to engage you, and I know you have your opinion, but as you come in, on Tuesday, I sensed something. I did speak this to Eli. Kenyans love their politicians. Kenyans idolize their politicians and they want to be like them. And sometimes, unfortunately, even when people are speaking about change, they probably don't want change. They want to be a part of the people or in the space to eat. I'll allow Marabu Stock to contribute. Eli, you'll have I think we'll have comments in the chat section. Then we'll have Professor Kibwana speak to us. And that Marabu to you, and then we'd have Eli read comments and then have the prof.
Greetings, Mizani. Am I coming through?
Can hear you 100%.
Yeah, so I was a bit worried because of my network. So greetings, Professor Redemptor 254 and everybody else. So we admire our leaders. And the reason why we admire our leaders, because leadership is supposed to attract the best of the best, so that the person who's supposed to be at the helm of leadership is supposed to be a figure that can be emulated. And for this reason, education is really important as much as skills. When you look at it, education is just gathering knowledge, and skills is utilization of the same knowledge. So for me, education is really important. The level of education, though, would be an issue, because do you need to be a professor to be a politician or to be a leader? So I would count for the basic education. We don't want to have fools and lumpens running around our administration. So at least we must have this basic form of education that can allow you to communicate, that can allow you to have that emotional stability, that can allow you to have that solution-based character, and that can only be brought through education, right? However, skills are also important, because we also don't want to have a layman doing everything for us. So for me, I think, like KOT said, it's a balance. You need to balance these two things, and one should not be emphasized over the other, because we have had professors and lawyers who are messing up our administrative system. Likewise, we've had uneducated people who have also become prosperous in the same system. So I don't think we can look at and pinpoint exactly between the two, which one is more important when it comes to leadership, right? Because leadership entails other things that might supersede whether education or skills, because you need passion, you need to have greater care, you need to have understanding, you need to have tolerance, you need to adhere to morality. And I doubt that these things you can get from education, or whether it can be taught as a skill to a person. So Some of these things are probably more to the character of the person. You know, when we are talking about great leadership, not just leadership, right? When we look at, somebody said the 21st century, but when we go back and look at the people like Mekatilili Menza, non-educated, but very. And if you look at the characteristics that our fathers had when it came to leadership, these are some of the things that we lose today with our modern education and our formal system, such that the person who's more educated sometimes loses touch with the community or becomes greedy because they look at the rest with disdain and feel like these other people are not my peers. So you look at yourself as above them because of your education or because of your skills. Yet leadership needs you to equalize a community, meaning that you have to bring the lowest to par and bring the highest to par and try to equalize. So sometimes you find that somebody who's more educated does not have time does not suffer fools, let me put it that way. And that cannot be a character of a good leader. A good leader must have the time to listen to the people and try to understand even what the lowest person has to say and has to put into consideration even the worst ideas that come from the community. You know, because for instance, if a community today decides that they want to ban thieves, and it is a general consensus, an educated leader would look at that as against human rights. But for somebody who understands the human working nature, would view it as a reaction of the community. So I don't think you can teach some things in school or you can acquire skills of some things. Maybe a God-given innate ability, because we know that we have special human beings amongst us that have this more of a common sense above the normal person and can know the difficulties and how to deal with society and community. So when you find two leaders in Kenya arguing about the education and all that, it's because we as a society, we have made education the standard of measurement for success, for leadership, for wealth, etc. So the people who are more educated kind of look down on the people who are not. And the people who are not educated have this disdain for it. It always creates a division. And I believe if you want to look for any worst division that you can have in society, is this education and non-education thing. You create a class of the educated. And lastly, let me say this about the appointments, because I think it's about the same issue. When a leader comes into power, for instance, an executive, how do you populate, let's say, the ministerial position? You find that for our case, a person brings his friends. The friends are educated, the friends are skilled. But once you bring somebody who you have this familiarity with, they tend not to work in that office. So also it is the kind of person that you bring there. This person might be educated, might be skilled, but that familiarity, that I do not look at you as the boss, ends up interfering with my services. So also sometimes it's the kind of environment that you put somebody. You can put an educated person in a bad environment and they perform poorly. You can put somebody who's not skilled in a good environment and they learn and they become better leaders. So it's a delicate balance, which I feel that Kenya has not really gotten grip of it. But I feel like going in time, since we're having this conversation, people like Professor, people like Redemptor can actually instill this thing in the future generation, because we've lost hope with the last generation. The Ruto generation, we don't have hopes in them. So the only people that we care about now in terms of leadership going forward are the Gen Z, the Alphas, and try to instill better form of leadership in them. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much, Marabu. Good arguments there. Eli, I'd have you read the comments, but while you do that, I'd like Prof to think about this question. Prof, you've been on both sides of this, and actually you're a leader and a professor and you lecture in school. You've taken leadership positions in this country. You've been a governor, and I've seen both sides of this spectrum. What has worked for you, and what would be your advice? And what's your definition of leadership? And how do you think this country progresses in the days to come? How do you go forward in ensuring that we can encourage purpose-driven leadership, ensure that this country is left in the hands of people who can push it to better days than people who are looking at the immediate gain, which has been the biggest problem? I'd have Eli read the comments and then you come back to answer the question.
Thank you, Obeds. I'll do exactly that. 254 already had highlighted leadership requires skills in understanding where to apply book smarts, and I think we had looked at that. For your information, youthfulness is not a guarantee of suitability for leadership. We will educate Kenyans on what great leadership is, how to be and identify great servants leader. That's according to Wallace. And thank you for sharing that. Wanda says, one can lead without classroom education, but one cannot guide a professional group unless learned and in the specific field. A political leader is just a good manager, not a good academician. Esther, rather, Eve Wanjala says, school is everywhere, including the streets. Great skills will always surpass classroom education. Africa's leadership problems are about integrity and character. I think earlier on we had looked at that, Obed, so you'll allow me to skip to the next message. And there's one that I found quite interesting, and I'm trying to go through the threads, so pardon my delays, because you quite have been supporting us with a lot of information. Someone who has purpose to lead the country, they are chosen. Their drive is the interest of the people, or rather of other people, and their interest comes second to that of other people. That is according to Flavia. You'll spot them by their deeds. They are doers, not just talkers. They embody empathy, integrity, and such similar among others. And I find this quite interesting. That is Chisabari. It's Chisabari shares with us, and I see him on the, rather see them on the speakers panel. Leadership in its simplest form is not about education. Pardon me. Age, power, or wealth. It's about being capable to harness the human capital, organizing it, and helping in ensuring societal problems are addressed by those you lead. Although education helps a leader in achieving these. And final sample here is from Balando Vincent, who says, in Kenya, we do not